Welcome back. Today's talk is titled Seeing the Pattern Doesn't Mean You Can Stop It Yet. And I'd like to illustrate it with a personal story. For a lot of my life, I was a dieter. I was the yo-yo ma of yo-yo dieting, you could say, which is a deep cut for all you cello enthusiasts. But it was always a familiar story, right? So you start off and your willpower is strong. You've had a successful day. You've adhered to what you wanted to do. You're feeling good. Calorie count's low, willpower strong. But then evening would roll around. And willpower gets a little bit less. Maybe I'm moseying through, walking my way through the kitchen, and I decide to just, open up the cabinets, just have a look around. I'm like Bargain Bin Barb or Coupon Queen Kathy just going around snacking their way around the end caps at Costco, pretending that I'm not about to turn a whole series of appetizers into a meal, which begs the question of how many snacks can you eat before it counts as a meal? But I'd just be going up there, just pretending like I'm just going to have a little taste. That's going to be it. I'm just going to have a taste. We're going to get in, get out. Oh, what do you got there? Those are those new gluten-free chips? No seed oils this time, huh? Oh, okay. I'm just going to... These are... Still not sure. You mind if I just go back in for a little bit more? Oh, Chipotle. Ken was just telling me that we needed to start spicing things up. And you just kind of snack your way through. I'm just going to pull out the chips here. We're just going to have let's do one portion. Let's take a look how much. That's 7 chips. Wow, that's only 7 chips. Okay, well, yeah, we're just going to have one portion. We can do that. And the next thing you know, half the fucking bag's gone. And thanks to the MSG, you're more hungry than ever. So next thing you know, I've got the fridge open, and pretty soon I'm standing at the counter in my boxers and my shame, eating leftover Chinese food, drinking a beer, and that's not enough. So now we need dessert, because desserts is stress spelled backward. And then suddenly we've raided the freezer, and it's like, oh, look, a carton of ice cream has ended up on the counter. How'd you get there, you sassy devil? And the worst part is you're watching yourself as you do it, right? There's this voice narrating where it's like, what are you doing? We're doing so good today. Why are you doing this? Are you trying to punish us? Why are you hurting us by doing this? Meanwhile, the other voice inside you is like, whatever, I'm going to till and make myself a sundae. Where's that caramel sauce? I'm just going to put the caramel sauce. And then luckily for me, we're out of whipped cream. Otherwise, my waistline would be completely in pain. And that's the way it goes, right? You did so good, and then suddenly at the end of the day, you just sabotaged yourself. But you're aware of it while it's going on, and it's this maddening middle ground. And it was a lot easier back when I was unconscious because you'd drink some beers, smoke some weed. You woke up and it looked like a bear had went through a campground. And you'd go in there and it felt like a true crime special. They're interviewing the neighbors and they're like, he seemed like such a nice guy, I don't think there's any way that he would murder a large pizza by himself, let alone half a box of Cheerios. There had to be a second spooner. There's just no way this young man took it down by himself. But now, self-awareness is entered. So now we are aware while we're doing it. We're standing there eating the bowl of Cheerios and it's nighttime and one voice inside you is like, you fat piece of shit. What are you doing? And then the other one's like, it's okay. We'll start again tomorrow. And that's that uncomfortable middle ground where awareness has now entered into the chat. And this connects back to the self-awareness talk. In that talk, I said that self-awareness is realizing something's happening inside you without becoming it. A fear appears, a thought appears, a craving appears, a story appears. And instead of immediately becoming it, you go, oh, this is happening inside me. This talk is the next layer. But what happens when you notice it and you still can't stop it? And that's the maddening part. You're at the stage where you're not unconscious anymore, but you're also not free of it yet. You can see the pattern, you can narrate the pattern, you can know exactly where the pattern is going, and yet somehow you're still standing there at midnight at the counter in your skivvies, chowing down on some leftover lo mein and washing it down with ice cream. And you're like, yep, I guess this is just our life now. And this is where self-awareness can get dangerous if you don't really know how to deal with it. Because now you're not just doing the pattern, you're judging yourself for doing the pattern. So the loop ends up doubling. So the food happens, then the shame happens, and now you feel bad because of the shame. So now you want to soothe the shame. So now you eat to soothe the shame. And now you're stuck in this loop where you're punishing yourself over and over. It's the fat bastard line from Austin Powers. I eat because I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy because I eat. That's the loop. I feel bad, so I eat. I eat because I'm feeling bad. And it's incredibly difficult because the very thing that hurts you is the exact thing that you're trying to use to soothe yourself. It's like an emotional pyramid scheme where every payment equals just more debt. And that's why we have to be sure that we don't let awareness become this kind of prosecutor against ourselves. That's not awareness, that's old patterns, wearing new clothes. Awareness isn't going to sit there and be like, yeah, we can raid the pantry and it's going to be fine. There's still an acceptance and understanding, but there's a steadiness behind there that says, okay, I can see why we did this. I can see where this came from. I can see why this pattern came online, and I can feel and understand the pain underneath. So why do we do it? A lot of it comes down to this self-soothing. We all have these different ways that we find soothing. And the important thing is to understand that, again, clarity does not equal capacity at that time. So I screwed up my shoulder. We'll start there. It's the perils of getting older. I think I threw something and I kind of like tore it a little bit, but historically the shoulder's always been really bad. And so now I'm learning how to redo everything from the ground up. I can know exactly what I want to do with my shoulder right now. I can know exactly how to do the exercise. I can watch all the videos. I can know what weight I used to put up and what I want to be able to put up again. But just because I know doesn't mean I have the capacity to do so. And that's kind of the kicker here. Just because you have the clarity about it doesn't mean you have the capacity to do so. I know why I overeat. I overeat historically because I found as a kid that this was a good way to self-soothe, that it was a way to calm myself down, calm my nervous system down. I overate because as a kid in grade school, we had 30 minutes for lunch and recess. So we spent 5 minutes eating, and then we spent 25 minutes playing soccer. So we learned to eat really quick. So we never let the satiety hormones catch up. We never let ourselves feel full. And then it continued as we went and we started working at restaurants. You just eat whenever you have time. Same thing with the brewery, pound it down. So you learn to just overeat, and you just eat really quick as fast as you can. And so you can understand and have the full clarity of why you do the things that you do, but still make those decisions. Because we create these ruts. Anytime we do something, I like to think of it like the old-timey carriages, the horse and buggies, if you will, which you see in like kind of old movies or last week if you live in Amish country. And as they go through into this ground, into the earth, they cut these grooves. They form these paths over time. And so when we create these grooves, you can move off to the side of them, right? You can try and like, all right, we're on that diet, we're going. But as soon as you slip, it's easy to go back into the old grooves. It's familiar. It's what you're used to. It's what you're going to want to default to. It's hard to keep on that same new path. And that's why all too often people end up sending that text message, getting back into that old relationship, doing something that feels like otherwise sabotage to themselves. And it's just because you have the self-awareness doesn't mean that you can have the ability to instantly do it, but that's okay because it's where it starts. Before, you were unconscious. Actions were just happening. It's like a sticky-fingered kid that was left alone in a Chuck E. Cheese that was just running around unsupervised. But now you're in the room saying, get away from the machine, stop poking the mouse. And now you're in the room with it. Awareness is there watching. And that's how it begins, because as we talked about with like integration, it's a process of you get better gradually each time. So before would be that kind of complete unconsciousness where it's like, okay, I just woke up and a war happened in the kitchen. And then it might be standing at the counter being like, can't believe we're doing it. No, this is terrible. And then you move on and it's like, okay, do we really need this? Are we actually hungry? Are we trying to self-soothe? Are we trying to not feel something right now? And you get a little bit better each time. Maybe you did go back to that toxic relationship, but instead of staying for years, it was months, and maybe it was weeks. And maybe now you reached the point where they called you, you showed up at the door, and you said, you know what? I'm not walking through this time. You chronically had to over-explain everything, sitting there and feeling unheard with messages where people read and don't reply to you and feeling like they misinterpreted you feels like war going on within your body. Oh, I got to explain myself. I got to send this message. But now you say, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and it's uncomfortable. I'm going to type the message, but I'm not going to hit send. I'm going to walk away from my phone. I'm going to walk away. I'm just going to close up this bag of chips. We can come back later. We're just not going to deal with it. And that's kind of just the process, because just because you have this clarity doesn't mean that you're ready or willing or at the point where you can just make this change overnight. Generally things, whether it's quitting smoking, drinking, repeated toxic relationships, over explaining. It happens in waves and stages. It's not like instantly you're over it. So now when I'm going to eat, I'm aware, but I'll sit there and be like, do we really need this right now? Is this trying to cover up for something else? We're feeling uncomfortable right now. Are we eating because we want to? And sometimes I know that I'm doing it. And I'll be like, you know what? We just kind of want to soothe right now. It's been a hard day. Awareness itself is not going to end the pattern, but it will create this new relationship to it. Those old grooves that have been heavily etched into the folds of your brain aren't going to go away overnight. And that's where it begins, in that one small moment where you see the old grooves, you see the old path, and you decide, you know what? Maybe tonight I'm going to take a new way home. So with that said, be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you again soon.